This is the third game in the series so far. The other two were released on PlayStation 3. The first two games featured a character named Cole, but this third installment features a new character that we have not before seen. His name is Delsin. This game takes place in Seattle, but this part of the game is actually a place that is near Seattle, Washington, but not quite the city. Delsin is of a tribe of Native Americans called the Akomish, but he's a bit of a delinquent, as you see here. The PlayStation 4 controller has gyroscopes and things inside that can detect motion. They've decided to make it so that at certain parts of the game you're able to spray paint, so you turn the controller to its side and then pull the trigger to make the paint come out. Delsin uses these stencils here to paint on walls and things like that. You may have noticed that this is a billboard, and the character on the billboard there is a cop, a sheriff actually, by the name of Reggie. Reggie happens to be Delsin's brother, so of course it's one of those stories where one brother is a law-abiding citizen, in fact, an officer of the law, whereas another brother is a delinquent like Delsin. Now in this series, you have the opportunity to become good or evil, or at least make good or negative decisions. And Delsin has the ability to, basically by touch, he absorbs the powers of other people. Now if you're not aware of the story of this franchise, basically there are people called conduits, or at least by this game, they say that conduits, or the word conduit, is a good term. It is not derogatory necessarily, but it's for people who call these people with powers. The people who call people with powers conduits are empathizers of them, or sympathizers, whereas everyone else refers to them as bioterrorists, because there's an organization called the DUP that's basically a militia that captures conduits, and they have basically scared the public into believing that anyone with powers is bad, or they make it so that you're afraid of these people. And so Delsin is actually a conduit, and he doesn't realize it just yet. Conduits are people with powers, obviously, and he's a conduit because he has power. But his power is not of the elements like everyone else is. For example, Cole in the first two games has the ability to absorb and manipulate electricity. In this game, Delsin does not actually have those powers. His power is actually to absorb the powers of other conduits. Multiple conduits, in fact, which he is about to find out here in a few minutes. Now, this game also, the way you traverse in it is actually a lot of fun. Basically, as you can see here, Delsin has the ability to traverse very well through parkour and free-running skills. It makes me wonder, because the studio that developed this game is a studio called Sucker Punch. It's based in Bellevue, Washington, which is not too far from Seattle, Washington. And in Seattle, Washington is a parkour group, a relatively well-known parkour group, at least in the parkour community. I believe they're called The Tribe, and they've been featured in many videos and on television and different things like that. So it makes me wonder if Sucker Punch was sort of a fan of that, or knew about The Tribe or something, because other games that they develop other than Infamous is a game like Sly Cooper series, and Sly Cooper has sort of an emphasis on parkour as well, or at least he's able to traverse and walk on wires and things like that, and do climbing and things. So as you can see, Delsin is climb up windows and things like that. Now, the first power, because you actually absorb many powers in this game, the first power that you absorb is the power of smoke. Smoke and ash and fire and the like. And through that power, there is kind of a shortcut to get to the top of buildings. Now there wasn't necessarily before, like in the other two games, the first two games. But with ash you can actually go through vents, which you will see here pretty soon as well. And sometimes the vents are on the side of the building and on the tops of the building. So if you are on the bottom of the building, you go through a vent, it'll shoot you through the top of the building. Other powers have different sort of dashing abilities as well. So as you can see, here's Reggie. We're actually seeing him face to face this time, and we find out that Reggie is actually Delsin's brother. And we find out through their speaking with one another also that their parents appear to be dead, I'm assuming. And oh, I was mentioning before that they are of a tribe called Akomish. Now, for the fear of sounding ignorant, I don't actually know if Akomish is a real tribe, but in Washington there are very, very many Native American tribes. So, now this is the DUP truck that is carrying conduits. I think 3 conduits, as a matter of fact. I'm sure there's only 3 of them. There's 2 of them there. Now, what you don't really realize at this moment, but realize later, is these are all where you get the powers from, each of these conduits. 2 of them ran off, and one of them is left behind here. You're about to meet him as we speak. Now you can see this little icon there, the black mat and the arrow going up. If you don't know, on the PlayStation 4 controller, there is a button, sort of a touchpad in the center. And so you take your finger and you swipe in the direction that it prompts you to do. So this is a conduit. They don't know it yet. Or a bioterrorist, as Reggie likes to refer to them as, because he is not a sympathizer of those with powers. And so there he is. He has smoke powers, sort of ashy and smoky firing. And then, as you can see here, Delsin touches his skin, and he sort of has this kind of flash of memory, which I think is a very, very cool presentation. I think it's very awesome. The first 2 games had a sort of comic book style, and I thought that was really cool, and they kind of took that style and made it a little more graffiti-esque, a little more urban. Now, when Delsin touches them, not only does he take their powers, but he sort of sees into their mind a bit, so that was what that was about. That happens a lot more later. He actually comes into contact with this conduit again, and has more, sees more from his mind. And when you come in contact with other conduits, the same thing happens. Now at this moment of the game, you actually have very little control over Delsin, maybe not even any control at all. You're trying to move him in the direction that you want him to go, but since these powers are new to him and he has no idea what he's doing, he's just kind of dashing off into different directions, almost goes off the cliff there. And now you have a little more control over him at this point. He's sort of kind of knows what he's doing a little more, but you can tell by the dialogue that he is not particularly happy, he's not particularly pleased, and frankly, very, very freaked out. So now we have Reggie stuck under a car, and it's time to help him. So you have little moments in the game, very few moments, but they're there, where it'll prompt you to do something with the touchpad. A lot of people were nervous about the touchpad becoming something very gimmicky, but in this game I think it's pretty conservative. I think they don't really use it a whole lot, and when they do, it's usually because to do certain little prompts. The time you'll use it the most is actually when you want to, when your powers are running on empty, because you actually have a meter. You can absorb, like for instance smoke. To refill your smoke meter, you obviously absorb more smoke from vents or cars or different things like that. So you press the touchpad to absorb the powers. personally, I actually find it very tactile. It's actually very satisfying when I use it. And I think that it's actually pretty good. In the end, it's really just a big button, except for the swipes and things you do on different prompts. But they use it for just kind of a big button, but I still find it pretty satisfying. But that's just me personally. I remember when I first played this game and I saw this moment where the sun is gleaming off of the reflections of the water on the street and just the raised and dipped concrete. I thought that was extraordinarily good looking. When PlayStation 4 first came out, I was a little confused because I knew that it had better graphics. I mean, it's the next era of video games as far as consoles are concerned. But for a lot of videos and things that I saw, I never really could see a very big difference. But now that I'm playing more of the PlayStation 4 and I look back on video games for PlayStation 3, I can see that it actually is quite a difference. But it was a moment like that where I walked past that alleyway there, and I was pretty amazed. Now you can see here that Delsin was using his dash power to go through the vents, and he's emphasizing here that the fall that he just took should have hurt him. As you can see, it did not. It did not hurt him as a person. It did not hurt your character's life bar or anything like that in the game, which you don't really have a life bar, I guess. But so Delsin, much like Cole in the first two games, can take a very good fall damage. He can take it very well. This is your melee attack. You grab a chain, and with the different powers, your melee attacks are actually very different. They're very different attacks. Some powers allow your melees to be very heavy, some are very quick, and different things like that. It's interesting because as you absorb more powers and you absorb more, and you get more powers upgradable and things like that, you find that all the powers do a lot of the same things. I mean, every button does basically the same move, but different powers make them just a little bit different. Some are stronger or faster, and it's pretty cool how they make them feel pretty different. And it's hard to actually have a favorite because some are better in some instances and some are not as good in others. Now, this is what I was talking about before. He actually has a sort of monologue that he's hearing as he's delving into his head. This happens with other conduits that you come in contact with as well. And he's kind of introducing what is basically the enemy of the DVP. And he's also, this actually is a lot of expedition. He's basically informing us of the DUP. He's saying where the conduits came from and kind of what the DUP does. They take conduits, or, or bioterrorists, as the public tends to call them. They take them to a facility, sort of like Alcatraz, I think, called Kaden K, I believe it's called. Kaden K, or Curtin K, I think it is. Curtin K. I believe it's some sort of type of island, like the Rock. And so they do tests on them there, things like that. So a lot of this is just an introduction to the game, the sort of storyline. You can see that he's a bit of an escape artist, and this was an opportunity for him to escape. Delsin's waking up, and this is where we find out that it's Delsin's ability to not only absorb people's powers, but sort of absorb their memories as well. Oh, by the way, this man's name is Hank. I keep referring to him as the Conduit, but his name is Hank. And so, a fight with Hank is about to ensue, and then we meet the real protagonist of the game just after the fight. But I think this is where